Red Dead Redemption 2 has more narrative depth than you can shake a stick at. The open world is huge and bursting with life, characters are well drawn, complex and lifelike, and the story is one of the most engaging ever written. Who'd have thought that cowboys could still be rootin' and tootin' in this here year of 2019? Oh, I am never doing that again. And it's a true testament to how well Red Dead Redemption 2 is written and how perfect Arthur Morgan is for the story Rockstar want to tell that there's so much written between the lines to bring to life. Piled up with theories, secrets, and strange world-altering perspectives, they only work because the characters seem so real. It's impossible not to believe the world goes on around you away from your influence as you play through the game. Whether Rockstar truly changed the genre as they hoped is irrelevant. They still created one of the best open-world games of all time. So down that can of tin peaches and ready yourself for some reading. As I'm Ash from WhatCulture Gaming, and this is Red Dead Redemption 2, 10 mind-blowing secrets and theories you need to know. 10. Francis is the devil, and he's connected to Grand Theft Auto. Geology for Beginners is one of the harder to come by side quests in Red Dead Redemption 2. But as long as you're exploring the world and not just dashing from quest to quest in a big old rush, you should be fine. In that quest, you'll meet a strange man named Francis with bright red hair, an eccentric wardrobe, and a birthmark on his face. Completion of the quest leads you to a shack, where you see sketches of the Great Pyramids and the Empire State Building. While it's possible Francis could have travelled to Egypt, the Empire State Building wasn't built until 1930, so he'd have no way of knowing what it looked like yet. The theory that he's a time traveller hardly requires super sleuthing, as a woman will approach you in that shack with a red-haired baby with a birthmark on his face, telling you his name is Francis. Oh, that's coincidental. And just in case that wasn't enough to butter your biscuits, Francis also has an intriguing link to Grand Theft Auto. In the 5th game, the Epsilon cult notes that someone with Francis's birthmark is a possible descendant of Kraft, and that people with red hair are unsavable liars, meaning Francis could be some version of the very devil they fear. And truly, what's more supernatural and devilish in nature than a time-travelling ginger, huh? 9. The Lost Colony of Roanoke. The Legend of Roanoke is a tale that has been explored in TV shows like Supernatural and American Horror Story, and now Rockstar has had a bash at it too. It details the fate of the first English settlers in America who mysteriously vanished without a trace. One of the settlers, John White, left in 1587 to gather supplies, but was unable to return until 1590 because of the Anglo-Spanish War. When he did, all he found was a single word carved into a tree, Croatoan. Impromptu history lesson aside, you might be wondering how all this fits into Red Dead Redemption. The game not only references the incident with Roanoke Valley, it seems to endorse the supernatural speculation surrounding its settlers. Oh, try saying that 3 times. Some historians believe that a native tribe killed the English, but then no archaeological evidence has ever been discovered to support this theory. In Red Dead, when you ride through Roanoke Valley, you can hear ghostly voices and wails, presumably belonging to the souls of the settlers. A woman will cry and screech that she wants to go back home, while at other times you'll hear unsettling laughter. Piss off, ghosts. We're trying to get gold here. 8. Arthur gets reincarnated. Animals are a huge part of the symbolism in many westerns, and Red Dead is no different there. Chapters are bookended by sepia-toned visions of animals, with different creatures appearing depending on Arthur's honour. This then occurs again in his hallucination after a key plot point in the game. Perhaps they're spirit animals, or perhaps they're a link to his next life. Even so, this isn't proof of reincarnation outright. For that, we need to take a look at Arthur's grave, where you see a different animal dependent on his honour level, with an eagle reserved for the noblest players. If you try to shoot it, the aiming circle will be greyed out, meaning it is the only wild animal in the entire game that you can't pop out of the sky. Another take on the reincarnation theory comes when Jack and Charles are building their house. A blue jay features in every scene of that montage, and given that Arthur's default outfit is blue and blue jays often represent truth and loyalty, it may be a symbol of Arthur watching over John. Either that, or a bird particularly enamoured with that lovely house building scene. Can't blame him really, it was very nice. 7. The Strange Man's Return. The Strange Man himself isn't a theory. He's in Red Dead Redemption 2 just as he was in the first. However, his role in the main story this time is better exemplified by the blind soothsayer who offers cryptic predictions of your fate if you put some coins in his cup. You have to work a little harder to find him, but the strange man himself is there for the spotting. In a shack in Lemoyne, you'll find a painting of a silhouette. If you revisit the shack later, the silhouette has been revealed as the strange man, and you'll see his apparition in the mirror behind you. In Red Dead Redemption 1, there were theories that he might be God, the devil, or maybe even John's conscience. All three could still be true, though it would be strange for Arthur's conscience to be so elusive and look the same as John's. In fact, the strange man's era-appropriate outfit suggests that if he is God, he's able to change his appearance at will. Why would their vision of divinity be exactly the same? Perhaps the strange man, whether he's a god or a devil, takes the idealised appearance of the man both men admire the most, Dutch van der Linde. 6. Undead Nightmare will return at Pleasance. This may just be the overactive imaginations of players desperate for another undead nightmare, but there is definitely something unpleasant going down in Pleasance. The door to the settlement is boarded up with the message "Stay out, plague," which is heavily reminiscent of The Walking Dead's "Don't open, dead inside," or "Don't dead, open inside," depending on your taste in memes. As well as that, around the town there's scrawled graffiti reading "Unclean sinners" and "Ill with sin" too. Whether or not it's actually zombies, there's certainly something rotten in the state of Pleasance. Not so pleasant after all. That joke's been made. I'm making it again. Unpleasant Pleasance. Ooh. There seems to be no real payoff for this in the game, but then Rockstar does love bringing its open world to life in ways the players can't ever influence. Also, there's an unrelated side mission where a mining company has let toxins loose in a lake and turned a small settlement into deranged lunatics. It's not unreasonable to think that something similar might have happened in Pleasance. All in all though, if thinking there's zombies in Pleasance adds to the possibility of getting an Undead Nightmare 2 scenario, that is more than enough to follow this theory blindly. 5. Jack is writing Red Dead. This one is taking a meta approach to what may be nothing more than an Easter egg, but it's still a fun theory that warrants discussion. In GTA, we see a book called Red Dead Redemption written by one Jane Marston, and it's safe to assume the author is Jack and not John. Throughout the game, there are several references to books, which can seem like knowing nods if we take it as fact that what we're playing through is just Jack's retelling. Jack asks you to get him a book and is frequently shown reading, while Trelawney mentions to Arthur that he'll end up in a book one day. Also, John mocks Jack, asking if he'll get rich writing silly stories. The game clearly wants you to play as honourably as you can, which makes sense considering how Jack clearly admires Arthur and would paint him this way too. There is also the rather obvious fact that the game is told in chapters as well. As for why it references New York when in GTA's universe it's called Liberty City, it may be that Jack simply invented the name New York for his parody and it just happened to be the same name we use for it too. Coincidences are a thing. 4. Hosea gave Arthur tuberculosis, not Thomas Downs. A huge motivator in Arthur's own search for redemption is his terminal tuberculosis, to the point where you can argue his diagnosis is the singular most important event. Arthur believes he got it from beating Thomas Downs to death near the game's opening. Thomas spits blood into Arthur's mouth and he later tells the nun he got it beating a man to death for a few bucks. However, there isn't any cast iron evidence for this. The circumstantial stuff is quite convincing, but it couldn't hurt to look at another interesting angle. From near the start of the game, Hosea is the one that has a persistent cough. It isn't as bad as Arthur's gets, so that means he's either better at hiding it, or it's an unrelated symptom of his relatively advanced age, or any number of other illnesses. Thematically though, it seems Arthur's redemption hinges on kicking Strauss out of camp and doing everything he can to do right by Mrs. Downs. If Hosea did give it to him, that is arguably more poetic. Arthur is trying to redeem himself by focusing on his more recent behaviour, but the truth is, he was raised as an outlaw. It doesn't matter what he does, he was doomed from the very start. 3. Abigail is the rat. Right, so the obvious contradiction to this is that Agent Milton straight up tells Arthur that it's Micah, and that's without Molly admitting that it was her too. But let's just look at the other possibilities here. They might not be the only ones stirring the pot when it comes to ratting on their pals. Agent Milton has spent enough time watching the gang and has his own mole in camp to report back to him, so he knows Arthur hates Micah. Considering this, Milton knew Arthur would believe it was Micah without question. When he reveals this fact, it's when Abigail is tied up and helpless, but Milton always thinks ahead. If he tells Arthur the hypothetical truth that it's Abigail, he could lose his star witness. Better to protect her in case Arthur or Sadie escape and he needs another in with the group. He probably wasn't counting on getting shot in the head by her immediately afterwards to cover the trail. As for why it could be Abigail, there is an abundance of evidence. In tracking Dutch's hiding spot and stealing the key, she's shown a devious side. She is a great thief, so why not a stealer of secrets too? Also, how she escapes unharmed when Hosea is shot and why Marston is taken alive are both unclear and slightly unlikely, unless she'd cut a deal with those guys. As for the Pinkerton attack after Guarma, the detectives would obviously wait until Abigail told them that the heavy hitters were back before they came looking. 2. Bill is gay, and it got him kicked out of the army. Now, if you go poking around camp, there is a letter which details why Bill was discharged from the army, stating an attempted murder and deviancy, which is a common code word for homosexuality. On top of this, if you play through believing this theory, there are a lot of interactions that support the idea of Bill's homosexuality if you stretch it out a bit. During the bar fight in Valentine, Arthur says about Bill, is he trying to punch that guy or kiss him? Which on its own is just some fun. But for some budding theorists, there are few too many similar gags for it to be coincidental. Later, when Hosea suggests Lenny shouldn't have dated Jenny because their names rhyme, he also uses the examples of Arthur and Martha, and then Bill and Phil. And in camp, Bill tries to convince Kieran to share a bottle with him. If you go up to him afterwards, Bill will get nervous and defensive, possibly because the army made him wary of showing his true nature. 1. Dutch gets a brain injury. This is a contentious fan theory, as many would argue that Dutch's behaviour is at the heart of the game's themes. Did he change under the mounting pressure, or had he always been that way, hiding his dark side? Suggesting he has a brain injury gives him a bit of a get-out-of-jail-free card on the issue, but there's certainly compelling evidence. Many point to the failed bank job as the first moment Dutch cracks after seeing Hosea shot in front of him. However, prior to this, he feeds Bronte to the alligators. So if we take that as the start of his recklessness, what could have kick-started it? The theory goes that it's the post office heist. During their escape, Dutch hits his noggin during a tram crash and complains of a sore head the entire way home. It is never mentioned again, but frontal lobe damage often causes impulsivity and changes behaviour. To be fair though, maybe Dutch always had that darkness within him and the brain trauma just exasperated it. It would be nice to believe it was just an external factor though. And that's our list. Which theories are your favourite? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. I've been Ash and this has been WhatCulture Gaming. Make sure to subscribe to the WhatCulture YouTube channel for more lists like this, and don't forget to visit whatculture.com for daily news and articles. Thanks for watching.